Hey everyone, welcome. So today, we're diving into the early life of the Prophet Muhammad. It's a period that really shaped one of the most influential figures in all of history. But it's a story that's as much about what we don't know as what we do. So let's just get right to it with the big question. What do we actually know about those first 4 decades? Before the revelations, before the message. Who was he? And the answer? Well, it's actually pretty surprising. We know very, very little. Well, the last 23 years of his life are meticulously documented, especially his time in Medina. Those first 40 years are kind of shrouded in mystery. The accounts that have survived are few and far between. So in this explainer, we're going to walk through the traditional narrative of these formative years. We'll look at his unrecorded childhood, this unique custom of being raised in the desert. We'll get into the story of his foster mother, Halima, the huge event known as the opening of the heart, his early life as an orphan, and finally, how all these trials really forged a prophet. Okay, let's dive in. All right, first up, the unrecorded childhood. While solid, historical, you can check it in a library records are pretty rare, the traditional accounts we do have give us a powerful framework for understanding the boy who would become the man. So you might be wondering, why is there this huge gap in the record? Well, a big part of it is just practical. Many of the people who knew him when he was young simply didn't live long enough to pass on their stories, especially after years and years of persecution. So what we're left with are these precious fragments. And the story often starts with a really unusual custom. And that brings us to his desert upbringing. See, shortly after he was born, Muhammad was sent away from his mother to live with a Bedouin tribe out in the desert. Now, to us, that probably sounds, well, really strange. Why on earth would the elite families of Mecca send their brand new babies out into the harsh desert? But when you break it down, you see this custom was actually incredibly strategic. It was like a long-term investment in their children. First, health. The desert was seen as a cleaner, purer environment, which actually increased a baby's chance of survival. Second, stamina. It was meant to build resilience and toughness. Third, discipline. It kept the kid from being spoiled by all the doting grandparents, uncles, and aunts back home. And maybe most importantly, language. To learn the purest, most eloquent form of Arabic from the tribes who are masters of it, well, that was like sending your child to the best finishing school imaginable. So let's see how this all played out in the personal story of Muhammad's foster mother, a woman named Halima. Now, Halima and her husband, they were really struggling. They were poor, and this whole fosterage system, it was a source of income for them. Wealthy Meccan families paid them to care for their children. But Muhammad, well, he was an orphan. His father had already passed away. So most of the women passed him over, figuring there wouldn't be much of a reward for taking care of him. Halima did too at first, but when every other woman had found a child and she was the only one left, her husband said to her, why don't you take the orphan? Maybe God will bless us because of him. And the change was, wow, reportedly immediate. The stories say that as soon as they took him, miracles just started happening. Their old goat that hadn't given milk was suddenly full. Their slow, weak donkey became the fastest animal in their entire caravan. The blessings were just so obvious that when the standard 2-year fosterage period was up, Halima actually begged to keep him longer, not for the money, but because she loved him and was genuinely afraid of losing all the good fortune he brought to their home. And it was during this extra time with Halima that something truly pivotal, something supernatural, is said to have happened. It was an event that would completely mark a turning point in his young life. So the tradition goes like this. Muhammad is about 4 years old. He's out playing with the other kids when the angel Gabriel appears. The other children, they freak out and run away, but Muhammad stays. The angel lays him down, opens his chest, and physically removes his heart. He then takes out a small black portion, washes the heart in holy Zamzam water, and places it back inside. And the angel holds up that black part and says, "This is Shaitan's portion that he had in you." Now, theologically, this is a huge moment. It's seen as a divine spiritual purification, preparing him for a life of isma, or what's known as divine protection from ever committing a major sin. You can just imagine, right? Halima's own children had seen it happen and ran back screaming that their brother had been killed. When Halima rushed out, she found Muhammad alive, just pale but calm. This was a terrifying, deeply strange incident, and it worried her so much that she decided, okay, it's time. I have to return this boy safely to his mother in Mecca. But his return to Mecca, well, it wasn't the start of an easy chapter. In fact, it was the beginning of a period defined by one profound loss right after another. I mean, just look at this timeline. He was already an orphan at birth. He never even met his father. Then, at just 6 years old, his mother Amina passes away during a journey. So he's put in the care of his loving grandfather, Abdul Muttalib. But just 2 years later, he too passes away. By the tender age of 8, he was an orphan 3 times over. So at 8 years old, he's entrusted to his uncle, Abu Talib. And Abu Talib would become this fierce, loyal protector for the next 4 decades, standing by him even when he started his mission of prophethood, and the whole world seemed to turn against him. Okay, so this brings us to our final section, and really the central question at the heart of this whole story. Why? Why would God decree such a difficult, trial-filled childhood for a future prophet? I mean, why so much loss? Why not give him a life of ease and privilege in the house of the chief of Mecca? Well, the traditional understanding is that these hardships weren't random at all. They were actually a form of divine preparation. From a faith perspective, the wisdom behind this difficult path was profound. It meant he was raised under God's direct care, so he wouldn't be indebted to any human being. It forged a maturity and independence in him that a pampered life never ever could. Experiencing hardship firsthand gave him this deep, real compassion for the poor, the weak, and especially for other orphans. He became self-reliant, ready for a mission that was going to demand unbelievable sacrifice. And you see this personal experience woven directly into his teachings later in life. He once held up his index and middle fingers together and said, "I and the one who takes care of an orphan will be like this in paradise." His own pain became a source of immense mercy for everyone else. So in the end, his upbringing wasn't this tragedy he had to overcome. It was the very crucible that forged him into the person he needed to be, a man with the strength, the compassion, and the resilience to deliver a message that would, quite literally, change the world. And that's what I want to leave you with, a final question to think about. How might all of history and his message have been different if his path had been one of comfort and ease, instead of one defined by so much trial and loss?